Some kings didn't just rule their people, they destroyed them. We're talking about men who turned entire kingdoms into personal torture chambers. Guys, the things these rulers did make your worst nightmare look like a fairy tale. One king bathed in the blood of his enemies just to feel powerful. Another ordered the deaths of thousands over a single personal insult. Trust me, what's coming in this video will genuinely disturb you. History books gloss over the real monsters who sat on thrones, but today we're pulling back the curtain on the cruelest kings who ever lived. These aren't myths or legends. Every single fact you're about to hear is documented. And honestly, the deeper we go, the darker this story gets. You think you've heard the worst already? You haven't even scratched the surface. The men we're about to cover didn't just commit cruelty occasionally. They built entire systems designed to inflict suffering on a massive scale. Some of them enjoyed it. They actually enjoyed it. If you want to uncover the hidden truths history has buried for centuries, subscribe to History Lab right now, because what you're about to hear will permanently change how you see power and humanity.
History Lab is the channel that goes where other channels are too afraid to go. Hit that subscribe button. You do not want to miss what's coming. Let's start with a name most people mispronounce, and almost nobody truly understands. Vlad the Impaler ruled Wallachia in the 1400s, and he was uniquely terrifying. He didn't just execute his enemies, he turned death into a public performance. Vlad's signature method was impalement, driving wooden stakes through living human bodies. He would line roads with thousands of impaled victims just to intimidate invaders. Ottoman soldiers reportedly turned around and went home after seeing his fields of death. One account says he impaled over 20,000 people in a single military campaign. He once nailed hats to ambassadors' heads because they wouldn't remove them in his presence. This wasn't rage. This was calculated, cold, deliberate cruelty used as a political weapon. And here is where it gets really disturbing. His own people initially loved him for it. They saw his brutality as strength, as protection against foreign invasion. That's the terrifying psychology of these kings. Cruelty and power became inseparable. Move forward a few centuries and across the world to China and meet Emperor Qin Shi Huang.
He unified China, yes, but the human cost was almost incomprehensible. Hundreds of thousands of laborers were literally worked to death building the Great Wall. Scholars who disagreed with him were buried alive in mass graves. He burned books by the thousands to erase any ideas that threatened his control. Qin believed he would live forever, and he spent fortunes chasing immortality potions. Those same potions, loaded with mercury, slowly poisoned and killed him. Wait, this next part shocked even historians. When Qin died, he ordered thousands of soldiers, craftsmen, and servants to be buried with him. His famous terracotta army wasn't just art, it was a monument built on mass forced labor. Archaeologists have found the bodies of workers sealed inside the tomb walls themselves. These men were buried alive to keep the tomb's secrets hidden forever. Now let's cross continents and talk about a name that still makes historians pause. Ivan the Terrible of Russia earned his nickname through decades of documented horror. He created a secret police force called the Oprichnina, specifically designed for mass terror. They wore black, rode black horses, and carried dog heads as symbols of loyalty to Ivan. Villages suspected of disloyalty were massacred. Men, women, children, no exceptions. The city of Novgorod was so thoroughly destroyed that the population never fully recovered.
But the truth about Ivan the Terrible is far darker than most people know. In a fit of rage, he beat his own pregnant daughter-in-law until she miscarried. Then, days later, he struck and killed his own son with an iron-tipped staff. Ivan was so consumed with guilt that he apparently went mad with grief afterward. He had personally destroyed his own dynasty in one moment of uncontrolled fury. Historians estimate that during his reign, somewhere between 30,000 and 60,000 people were killed, and Ivan himself reportedly kept lists of his victims and prayed for them nightly. That psychological contradiction, mass murderer who felt genuine guilt, is genuinely chilling. Now let's talk about a king whose cruelty operated on an almost industrial scale. Leopold II of Belgium never set foot in the Congo, but he owned it like a plantation. And here is where it gets really disturbing. He wasn't even a traditional king doing battle. Leopold used the Congo Free State as a personal business to extract rubber and ivory. Workers who didn't meet rubber quotas had their hands cut off by company enforcers. Children's hands were severed to prove that bullets weren't being wasted on animals. Baskets of severed hands were presented to European administrators as proof of discipline.
Historians estimate that between 5 and 15 million Congolese people died under his rule. Leopold never faced a war crimes tribunal. He sold the Congo and died a wealthy man. The international community knew what was happening and largely looked the other way. No one talks about this enough. Leopold committed genocide from the comfort of his palace. He dressed it up in the language of civilization and Christian mission the whole time. Wait, this next part shocked even historians who specialize in colonial atrocities. When journalists and activists finally exposed the Congo horrors, Leopold hired PR specialists. He launched a propaganda campaign to protect his image across Europe and America. It partially worked. He remained respected in European royal circles until his death. That is what makes him perhaps the most sophisticated monster on this entire list. Cruelty hidden behind paperwork, spreadsheets, and the language of economic progress. Now consider Amenhotep III's successor, the pharaoh who tortured Egypt differently. Or look at King John of England, who lost territories and taxed his people into starvation. These men didn't need death squads. They used bureaucratic cruelty and deliberate neglect. Sometimes the cruelest kings kill people slowly through policy, poverty, and indifference. And here's the real takeaway that historians don't always say out loud. Every single one of these kings had supporters, defenders, and people who called them great. Cruelty doesn't announce itself as cruelty. It always comes wrapped in justification. Vlad was protecting his people from the Ottomans. That was his story. Leopold was bringing civilization to Africa. That was his story. Ivan was defending Russia from traitors. That was the story people believed. Power has always found a way to make brutality sound reasonable, even noble. That's the most disturbing truth this video leaves you with tonight. The cruelest kings in history weren't recognized as monsters by everyone around them. They were recognized as strong, and that confusion between strength and cruelty still exists today. History is not just a collection of dates and maps, it's a warning we keep ignoring. These kings existed because systems let them exist, and people let them continue. Every generation has the chance to look at history and choose differently. The question is whether we're actually paying attention to what the past is screaming at us. If this video made you think, and I honestly believe it did, subscribe to History Lab right now. This channel exists because the truth about history is too important to leave buried. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Which of these kings shocked you the most? And tell me, do you think rulers like this could rise again in the modern world? History Lab will keep digging where others stop, keep asking what others won't, because the most dangerous thing in the world is forgetting what human beings are capable of.